Well, the day we were licensed, I think the service was at 9 o'clock. There were quite a number of us to be licensed, but we were rather rushed through the service because it was the ordination to follow straight on. The ordination service obviously took precedence over readers. So the cathedral was very full. I was very surprised when we processed down.
I think readers are a really important part of the ministry in their own right. They're not just a stopgap for when you can't get enough clergy. It's a very valuable ministry in itself. And I would see readers as being, in every way, enjoying a parity of esteem with clergy. They both serve with the bishop's licence and they both represent the ministry of the whole church.
We'd only been back from Africa about 2 years, and the parish I was in then, St Anne's in Willenhall, they were thinking that it would be amalgamated with St Stephen's in Willenhall, which most of the congregation didn't want, including the priest in charge. He asked me about my work out there in Tanzania, and would I consider being a reader. One way of keeping the church open, that there would be somebody who could take some of the services. In fact, at that point, I didn't even know there were women readers, because being abroad, I hadn't been up to date with everything that was going on in the Anglican Church.
The new thinking around readers is that they are not rota fillers, they're not there to stop the gaps, but they're actually lay theologians who work both inside the church, but actually their primary role, I think, is to be outside the church, being at work in the world, in schools, in nursing homes, whatever it might be, but offering a unique insight into what it is to be a Christian disciple in the world at large.
I've never been shy about telling people that I go to church and that I'm involved with the church and that I'm doing things, but people see it more because, I mean, just for example, the fact that there were tons of photos on the day of the licensing. I mean, people that I work with, saw them on Facebook and started talking to me, and people that I might not have had chance to share my faith with before. So it's made people more aware of what my faith is and the fact that I am involved with the church.
I found readers particularly helpful to me when they have focused on what I think is their key ministry, which is explaining the scriptures. I've had readers serve with me on a number of task groups where we're looking at quite complicated theological issues. They've been great in that. And equally, I've had readers whose pastoral ministry has been hugely appreciated by people in my church. So there's a whole spectrum of things that readers can do and indeed do, and we should be celebrating that.
I found in local Methodist churches, it was quite acceptable because they'd already had women as lay preachers. But in the Anglican churches, they were still a little wary of a woman taking a leadership role, and certainly of preaching. And one or two of the clergy wanted to know exactly what I was going to be saying and did it apply to their doctrine as they believed. So it was a little difficult being the first woman in the area, in the Anglican churches. But it panned out all right in the end. I went to First Bank Worship Centre, as it is known. I worked quite happily in the whole parish after that. So I took services and did a lot of work, both at Holy Trinity Shortheath and First Bank Worship Centre, until I retired 18 months ago.
Sometimes people say the word reader is a bit old-fashioned. I think it's actually a great word. It's about reading the scriptures, but it's also about reading the world we're in and bringing the two together.
I retired from teaching, and I remember saying to God, the Bible says 70 years and 10. Well, I'll give you the 10 years, Lord. But the last thing I thought of was reader, because I didn't fully understand it. I honestly thought that before I was a teacher, I was a nurse. And I thought I could use those skills at UCB on the prayer lines. So I asked my vicar for a reference, and he asked me a few weeks later if I was interested in doing a worship course, which I knew nothing about worship. And the worship then led on to Pathways to Ministry. I had no excuse when I was asked these questions. And then once you're on the Pathways to Ministry, which I loved, you then have to make a decision about whether you want to do reader training or ordination. And I didn't have much time to decide that I didn't want to do either. So I went towards reader training because I thought that the length of time for ordination was too long. But now that I am training to be a reader, I know it's the right place, and I should have trusted God at the beginning.
The advantage of being a reader is that you are not encumbered with the running of the church. That you are able, although you work in a leadership team with your clergy colleagues, a reader is able in a way to be less encumbered by the day-to-day running of the church and the church buildings and all of those things, and is able to have a focus, to look outwards, to have a focus on what is going on in the community. How are to read the pulse of a community in a way that perhaps those who are focused maybe inside the church and inside the church building are not able to do. So that for me would be one of the great advantages of being a lay theologian working in and with the community, that you are freer to take the pulse of the community.